So this is my second take. I kind of did like 30 minutes of recording and only to realize that I was muted the entire time. So we're on the second run now. Let's talk relics, you guys. That's the whole point of this was to talk relics. I just wanted to give you some general advice if you're not a Genshin player and maybe just are kind of confused as to what you should be looking for in this game, because I understand there's a bit more stats you need to focus on. You don't have energy recharge, you have speed though, so good luck with that. Oh, the deja vu in this is going to be strong. Okay, first and foremost, you want to consider the character's kit. You primarily want to look at if they're gaining crit or crit damage from any source in their kit. In Yanqing's case, he's getting 18% here and 60% here. So in that instance, I don't need to focus as heavily on crit rate. I can go all in on crit damage, which as you can see, I've done. This is primarily because once you reach a certain point over 100, that's where you're capped at. Anything over 100 does not matter. Do not go over 100. And to explain this even further, the main ratio people look for is 1 to 2. You want 100% crit to 200 crit damage, 50% crit rate to 100 crit damage. That just keeps everything in balance because for the most part, a basic crit rate roll will be half of the lowest basic crit damage roll. So hypothetically, in situations like this, if you have 5.5 crit rates, the exact same value in crit damage is going to be 11%. That's because your crit rate is half your crit damage and your crit damage is double your crit rate. That's basically what you're looking out for. That's what people mean when they say they want a 1 to 2 ratio. I do not and will never advise you to throw out a relic that does not have both crit rate and crit damage. Nobody's at the point in their account where they can start doing that. No, do not do it. If you have crit damage, if you have crit rate, keep it because you don't know when it's going to be useful. And realistically speaking, if it's not useful on your main damage dealer, slide it on over to somebody else. My QQ got all my Zealous pieces because I want to build them both up, and it makes no sense to throw out pieces that could have been used to her. In general, crit rate and crit damage are great, but if your character is gaining a bunch of stats from either their traces or whatever the case may be, or maybe even their light cone, you can go for attack and you can kind of prioritize that as well. The main stats you're looking for your damage dealing characters is attack, crit rate, crit damage, and speed. For characters like Zila, and this is why I always recommend understanding your character's kit, because she has the ability to gain a bonus after utilizing this, especially with her E2, that speed isn't necessarily as valuable. Don't get me wrong, it's still good, but because she's increasing it by 25% and then 50% at E2, you can kind of go for attack percent boots. For every other character, go for speed. Go all in for speed. Speed is what you're looking for. A general tidbit of advice is to only use your immersifiers. Do not spend your stamina in Simulated Universe unless your main stats are worked out. Because, bluntly speaking, the bonuses from Simulated Universe and the sets in there aren't going to overtake the bonuses you would get from a full 4-piece set. In this instance, Sila's set is 20% defense ignore and a 10% quantum damage bonus. This is 16% crit damage. It's there, but I would prefer Inert Soda or Space Healing Station. So as a result, understand that your immersifier should just be spent and then don't spend your stamina in that domain because it's not your priority. Outside of this though, also know and understand that a 4-piece set bonus sometimes won't be worthwhile. Don't get me wrong, they're nice, and they're nice to have, but if you're to essentially get a full 4-piece bonus, you are sacrificing and ending up with a terrible ratio, maybe it's not worth it. Maybe it's time to look at your stats and reconsider, is this really where you want to go? Because for the most part, if you have a bunch of crit damage, like hypothetically, if this were my Yanqing and he didn't get any crit rate, this would be god awful. I would have to rearrange it, and if I didn't have a good relic, like let's say I had, where is it? This. If I didn't have this and couldn't force this to be a ratio, then I would honestly either go for a broken set or go for a 4-star set. Because, and I want to advise you on this, 4-star sets aren't that bad. I know for the most part people are looking for that nice 5-star all golden relic set, but 4-star sets can kind of be what save you a lot of trouble, especially now. If a 4-star piece has the main stat you want on a set you want, lock it down because you don't know when you're going to need it and you don't know when they're going to get a 5-star variation of it. I farmed for Zila forever, enough to where I could build out QQ, but I only got attack percent or defense, and as a result, this 4-star piece has saved her build the entire time. So please understand, 4-stars are worse than 5-stars, but they're not god awful. They're just not what you ideally want to be using in end game. But we aren't in end game, we're in middle game. We're in that kind of middle ground where nobody's maxed out, nobody can really max themselves out, and if they do get there, they're kind of low on resources. Don't speedrun the game. Just take your time, have fun, understand who you like building, understand who you like as a character. This is still my favorite character, as in I want his light cone. I want to max him out, so I will prioritize my Yanqing. but understand who you want to prioritize. Don't go for the light cone if you don't think you need it. Don't build out a full 4-star piece or a full maximum, entirely maxed out set, as in 15, 15, 15, 15, everything, if you don't have the resources to build out the rest of her teammates. Speaking of teammates, understanding your characters is incredibly important, my guys. Do not look for that 1-to-2 ratio on your supports yet. You can much later on, but as of right now, I think that it's far more important just to either focus on the survivability of them or just to get them going. As much as, it sounds like a redundant point, I do think that a lot of people choose to focus so heavily on their damage dealers, their supports are lacking. As in, like, their damage dealer can have a nice all golden relic set with the 2-piece bonus they want and everything, but then looking at the 4-star and they're ending up like this, or they're looking at this with zero, no upgrades at all, and they wonder why the Tingyun dies in 2 hits. Like, please gear your supports not as heavily as you need to for your damage dealers, but gear them enough to where they don't drop out of battle at the drop of a hat. Understand that your supports are the reason your DPS is able to DPS. I understand that it's a good idea for a vast majority of you to hyper invest into your damage dealer so that way the enemy dies before they have a chance to focus anything down. But if you're dealing with a boss or Forgotten Hall, you won't have that option. So it's a good idea to take one character you like, get them to a good enough point, then focus down on your supports. I'd say it's the order of operations for most of you should be DPS, then support, then healer. Or DPS, support, healer, or defensive unit, or vice versa. These two, your preservation and your abundance characters, will kind of overlap in the stats you use. Preservation wants defense and your abundance characters want HP and outgoing healing bonus. So it honestly just depends on which one gets the stats they need first. And if you're going for somebody like Jin Yuan and you want his full 4-star relic set or 4-piece relic set, you're probably getting some nice defensive sets. Throw these onto your fire MC and you're done. Because especially with all that defense you're probably getting, you don't need it. But for your Bailus and for your Natashas and your Lotras, it's a pretty decent enough idea just to get a nice Musketeers or outgoing healing bonus for the Wandering Cloud set. Enough to get them going, but you don't need to heavily invest. You don't need to build up every single one of these pieces just yet like you would for your damage dealers, because your main goal is twofold. First, you want them to survive. HP or defense. Those are your methods for that. Second, after they've gotten to that point, after your main team is built up, you want them to be able to do their job and do it well. This means understanding how are they buffing, how long did this buff last, figuring out the rotations for your team currently. Hey, maybe your Zila gets so many turns in and the rest of your roster gets so many turns in, but your Tingyun has low speed, so she doesn't get to do her job. Or maybe your Bailu has low speed, she's not healing when you need her to heal. Understand that at that point, maybe it's a good idea to slide on over to the relic section, look at the relics you have and say, you know what, this is HP, she's healing, but I need her ultimate a lot more than I thought I did initially, so energy regeneration rate may be better for her, especially if you can get the spring or the sprightly set. This one, which gives you energy regeneration rate. Maybe it's a good idea to understand that yes, these big damage stats here for the 2-piece bonuses can be nice and valuable, but it may be a better idea to try and figure out how to get either a good inert salsa or just to help balance out the crit rate, or to get Space Ceiling Station for the attack bonus. It's incredibly easy to get so caught up in the crit rate, crit damage hype and the search for it that you forget speed, that you forget attack, that you forget HP or defense, that all of these stats you're seeing here have a point for either every character or most characters. Segmenting off who gets what is incredibly important. Yes, crit rate and crit damage is nice. Yes, speed is nice. But for the vast majority of you, if your Tingyun isn't surviving, if your Bailu or Natasha isn't healing, it doesn't matter how high or how good your hunt character or your erudition character is built if they aren't surviving the fight, or if the rest of your team is dead to the point where Simulated Universe has you picking abundance the entire time just so you can get through. If you're looking at content creators, yes, bigger ones, they may be solely focusing on crit rate, crit damage, 1-to-2 ratios, and that's fine, but they can do that. For the vast majority of you, you can't. I don't even do that because I'm having to prep for Lotra now and all the other units who I have to build up. But at the end of the day, understand where your resources should be going to. It's a better idea to neglect artifacts and relics, get a musketeer set, say, you know what, that's fine, and then instead say, I'm focusing on light cones. I'm focusing on traces. I'm focusing on the main stats with the Ascensions, because these are all guaranteed upgrades. This is a 50-50 shot of being an upgrade, and when I say 50-50 shot, I mean a 50-50 shot of it even dropping in the first place. It's like a 33% chance to actually get 2, and at level 50, that still isn't worth it. We're not in endgame, we're in mid-game. So please don't play like it's endgame. Please don't play like your entire account is built up, like you can reach the last stages of Forgotten Hall. You probably can, and that's perfectly fine. If you can't reach that, if you can't defeat a boss, if you're having difficulty with the simulated universe, that's fine. But more damage is probably not the issue. Instead, survivability is probably more important. Either way, that's just my thoughts. Give me yours down below, and I'll see you next time. Consider subscribing or joining the server.